Good evening and welcome to Saint Giles Church. The incarnation, the belief that in Jesus Christ God has become a human being, is the central belief, the central teaching of the Christian faith. As St John says at the beginning of his Gospel, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And as we say in the Creed, Sunday by Sunday, we believe in one Lord, Jesus Christ, God from God, light from light, true God from true God. Now, over the last few weeks, I have celebrated the Eucharist and filmed it here in front of the east window of St Giles. And this window is really an attempt to express the doctrine of the Incarnation by symbolism. And I know that some people have thought more about this window, seeing it on film, and have expressed their thoughts with me. So I thought that when I had the opportunity, I would try and help us all think a little bit more about this window. Some years ago, I was here in church saying morning prayer, and three young teenage girls, tentatively pushed open the door and came in. And I looked up at them from my prayer book, and they asked if it was possible for them to have a look around the church. And I said, "Oh yes, of course, feel very welcome." And they came in, and they stood there gazing around the church, and in particular at the sun streaming in through this east window, the bright early morning sun, and all three stood there with wonder and stood there gasping in amazement. Now, I'm going to help us think about this window by reading some notes made by Lawrence Lee, who designed and made the window. These notes, together with some information about the window, can be found in the Saint Giles guidebook produced by Father John, and also can be found on the website. Anyway, here are the notes by Lawrence Lee about the window, and I'm going to read them slowly. I'm going to get out of the view of the camera so you can just look at the window, and I'm going to read them slowly so you can carefully look at what he is talking about. In general, the design is an attempt to express the central doctrine of Christianity, the Incarnation, by means of symbolism rather than figures. Now look at the lower portion of the window. The signs are the earth-coloured Y figure, man reaching out to God, and the blue inverted Y figure, God reaching out to man. The ascending and descending branches interlocking to enclose a diamond-shaped space. Now look at the threefold circle within the space of the diamond shape, which expresses, Lee says, the inner shape, the spirit of man, the purple circle, the human intellect, and the outer green circle, the body. Now look at the top of the window. Descending from the top tracery is a form to suggest the richness of God available in man, entering the sphere of man at a narrow point where the only recognizable figure in the window is seen as the Christ crucified. The Incarnation is thus seen as the deliberate limitation of God to the scale of human tragedy. In the outer lights, the rich green and red bands form an earthly frame on which the complex but rich patterns of man's activities are imposed at intervals until they reach the otherworldly forms in the tracery. Now, as we look at the window, I'm now going to read from St. Paul's letter to the Colossians, in which he talks about the incarnation and links it to the creation and to the crucifixion and resurrection. So this is Paul's letter to the Colossians. Let us give thanks to the Father, who has qualified us to share in the inheritance of the saints in light. He has delivered us from the dominion of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For in him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible. All things were created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. He is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in everything he might be preeminent. For in him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of the cross. Thanks be to God.